Hello, welcome back to the Pit Stop Podcast. I'm Braydon Dowler-Coltman. I'm here with Jordan Dowler-Coltman. How you doing, Dord?
Pretty good.
Good. We had a really fun race this last weekend here at the CM.com Circuit Zandvoort. I hope I said that right. I likely didn't, but it was the Dutch Grand Prix. Here we go. Something notable here to mention, Kimi Räikkönen announcing that he no longer will be racing in F1. He ends up getting COVID and is unable to race in this race. Jordan, what are your takeaways from the Dutch Grand Prix?
Yeah, obviously big news prior to the race this weekend that Kimi Räikkönen, the seasoned veteran, one of the most fascinating and sort of entertaining characters in the entire sport, announces his retirement. He'll leave at Alfa Romeo. And obviously we kind of speculated a little bit on this last podcast when we were talking a little bit about George Russell and the future of just where drivers were going to end up next season. And obviously we'll talk about that coming up later in the show, but because, now the news is starting to break, but yeah, Kimi announced that. And then in very, obviously this is not planned. He did not mean to get COVID or anything like that, but in just it's so like Kimi to have this huge big announcement and then just disappear, because he's so he just has all these wonderful moments where he just avoids all of the usual hoopla and spectacle of F1. He's always so laid back. People always ask him questions about, will you miss racing? Do you love racing? And all these kind of things. And he always jokes about I just do this because it's fun. He's never seemed to take it to himself or the sport too seriously. And yet he's been around now for, he and Alonso are the two elder statesmen. So it's definitely sad news, I guess, in one sense, because it's going to be sad to not have him there. And he's one of those characters, but obviously, hell of a career.
Hell of a career. Absolutely. You just mentioned Alonso. He finished sixth. That Alpine team seemed to have a pretty good race this week. What are your takeaways from Alpine this week?
Yeah. Both drivers, I thought, raced really well, drove really well. You mentioned in your little intro there that, it was a fun course. We haven't seen this course like this before with the banking corners there. I know Hamilton complained a little bit during qualifying that it was really hard to control the car on the inclined corners, which just adds another wrinkle to the whole thing. And I think a few drivers found different levels of success with it. Obviously, Max Verstappen loved it. But no, Alpine was one of those teams that impressed this weekend. McLaren had another good weekend. It was interesting. I can't remember exactly when it was, probably around the 3/4 mark of the race. I remember looking at the timing charts and the placement charts and just seeing all of these teams with both drivers sort of 1-2 or 1-2 or 1-2 down the table. You had the Mercedes were together, the McLarens were basically together, the Alpines were together. I think even at one point the AlphaTauris were together. Yeah. The only team
Aston
that really
Martin
never was
finished
stuck
together.
Exactly. The only team that never really got back together was Red Bull, because obviously they had to change the some components on Sergio Perez's car, and once again he worked his way up through the table, which is becoming just a common, more and more common occurrence for him. But yeah, it was interesting. It seemed like most drivers found some parity in what they were able to do with the team car, and but a good race, obviously, for Max Verstappen. Exactly what he wanted. Dream come true to win the home Grand Prix there in the Netherlands. Lots of orange flares, lots of orange jerseys, and just people excited to see their hero. Look, Max had a really sort of bumpy end to the first half of the season, literally bumpy crashes, some blowing tires, some struggles, just bad luck overall. It felt like the last week when we didn't even get the race in, he was sort of just so ready to get back to racing after the break. And he finally got to that this week, and he just really dominated it. Every single thing that Mercedes tried to do to get an advantage with the undercut and trying to get Bottas in front to create some dirty air, just none of it phased the Red Bull team. Nothing Mercedes was going to throw at them was going to steal this victory from Max. And I think that he's going to be formidable going forward. Lewis and the Mercedes team is really going to have to knuckle down here in the next couple of races to prevent Max from starting to pull away again, as he did earlier in the year. Maybe luck will be on their side for that, but I think they're just going to have to drive better too.
You mentioned the McLaren's having a good race. I would disagree. I don't think that 10 and 11 is where they anticipated or intend or expect to finish.
Yeah, I should say, I don't know if the result is what I mean by that, but I think out of qualifying, both cars performed well. The drivers performed well. But you're right. I mean, they were going to want more than that out of Sunday results. That's true.
For sure. Gasly, another nice finish, finishing P4.
Yep. Gasly has been one of those guys every couple of races or so. We really see what he's capable of. Obviously, he's in a slightly less powerful vehicle in the AlphaTauri than the regular the regular Red Bulls. But, he's just an A-class driver. He's one of those guys who we can, I think, expect to see in some head-to-head battles next year when the cars have a little bit more parity and it's a little bit easier to pass, because he's going to push whatever car he's in, he's going to push. He's a great driver. And it's nice to see him back up in a competitive spot for sure. But, it's funny when we talk about sort of Red Bull and Mercedes just being heads and shoulders above every other team, Verstappen, Bottas, and Hamilton lapped the entire field. Which is pretty crazy. So,
yeah. All right. Well, that was the Dutch Grand Prix, and we'll leave it there.
Hey, guess what? The Ordinary Podcasting Network has a brand new show. If you're a fan of HatTrick Sports, then I promise you are going to enjoy the Backyard Basketball Podcast. Braydon Dowler-Coltman, who is one of the hosts of this show here, HatTrick, hosts an amazing basketball show with one of his best friends, Christian Steck. Together, the two of them will break down the NBA, news from around the basketball world, and get you caught up on everything you need to know. It's fun, it's fast, they have great conversation and banter, they love basketball, and you will love the Backyard Basketball Podcast. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts, and you can also follow them on Instagram at backyardbasketball_podcast.
Okay, we're teeing up the Italian Grand Prix. Some more news out of the future of F1. This is the time where we start to see some seat changes. Big news coming today and over the weekend as Valtteri Bottas signs with Alfa Romeo. Not quite the team he was with, but this was kind of something that everybody saw coming as George Russell takes the new Mercedes seat. Jordan?
Yeah, well, we talked about this last show. This was kind of the worst kept secret in F1 that Russell was going to move to Mercedes. And in fact, it was such a bad secret that Mercedes didn't even get the pleasure of announcing it. Now, maybe there was some kind of sort of gentleman's agreement to let Bottas be the first one to announce it. And I think that was really respectful if that was the decision. Either way, it looked classy, regardless whether it was planned or it sort of just happened that way. But Bottas really got to acknowledge that he was leaving, the championship team and moving down the table to one of the bottom competing teams in Alfa Romeo, and it's obviously a huge step back, but Bottas himself has taken a couple steps back in the last years. It wasn't that long ago that in the 2018-2019 season, Bottas was pushing Hamilton for the championship. He was right up there competing, and in the last couple of years in the same car, he just hasn't had the same pace or sort of competitiveness. And so, yeah, obviously Mercedes and Toto Wolff was ready to move to the next generation, and George Russell has been just patiently waiting for his opportunity. He had that one really impressive showing last year when he filled in for Lewis and almost won the race until some unfortunate luck with the pit stops. But yeah, great news for George. It's funny, when I first started following F1 a couple years ago, I remember watching the first season of the Netflix show, and I really didn't like him. I there was something about him I didn't care for. And over time, he's won me over, and I really am impressed by him as a driver. I think he's carried himself really, really well. I think he does have a bit of a hot head when he gets into certain situations, and that's something we see from all the top drivers. So it shouldn't, you can't really hold that against him. If you remember that incident with Valtteri Bottas earlier in the season, and he got out and sort of went over there and smacked him on the helmet, like that's the kind of things that he's going to have to avoid in the future. But the truth is that comes from just this, I think this fiery competitiveness that's in him. He's so young, but to have him and Max Verstappen as these two young 20-year-olds competing will be really exciting to see.
Well, that's just it. I mean, we talk about Lewis being probably one of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest of all time, but Max Verstappen has really taken that away from him this year. He's been a dominant force. So to have and I wonder how long. Well, Lewis is signed for like 2 or 3 more years, and potentially more after that, but it won't be long before George takes that first seat, I think.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because my friend Tyler, who's also a big F1 fan, we were texting last night when the news broke, and he mentioned he thought, well, it'll be interesting to see how Lewis deals with, another guy trying to fight for some podiums. And I thought, yeah, that's true. It's important for Lewis to be the first guy. He will expect that of the team, and he deserves it. He's a champion, and he'll be looking to try to beat Michael Schumacher's all-time record. If he doesn't do it this year, he'll be looking to do that next year. And so, I think what's funny though is if you look back at most of those championships for Lewis, he had a very competitive driving partner at his team, whether it was Nico Rosberg first, and we know how hot that rivalry got. They hated each other by the end of it, and it only made Lewis better. And then Valtteri Bottas, like I said, only a couple of years ago, he was winning races and a lot of races, and we were seeing weekends where it was Bottas 1, Lewis 2, and then Lewis 1, Bottas 2 or 3. And it made Lewis better. And I think that it will make the team better to have a driver like George there. Would it be too much to say that he comes in next year and just blows everybody away and is competing for a championship? No, I don't think that's too much to say. He's capable of that. But I think at the same time, I think Lewis Hamilton still has some things to prove. And I think having a world-class driver on his team is only going to make it more exciting.
Russell will just have to race a full race to actually win the championship.
That's very true.
I also think it's going to be really great for Alfa Romeo to have somebody that kind of seasoned veteran. They haven't really had someone like that. You see what it's done to a team like Aston Martin with Vettel and Alpine with Alonso, these kind of veteran guys to steer the way. Even though we expect them to kind of be below on the back, I think it'll be adding some nice competition at the back there.
I wouldn't say that they haven't had veteran experience because they had Raikkonen, who's one of the most veteran drivers there. But I will agree with you that I think Bottas has more still to prove, and Bottas also comes to them with a slightly more a slightly different chip on his shoulder, and something he needs to now demonstrate that he's still got. And also, we don't know yet who his partner at that team, his teammate, will be, whether it's Giovinazzi or not. He is not currently signed. There is some rumors that maybe there's still space for Mick Schumacher to step up and take that other seat. Although I think that that's probably less likely at this point. I think if he hasn't already, I think Schumacher's deal is going to be closed with Haas. The other seats that are now open still are Williams, and it'll be interesting to see who gets the seat there. There's a rumor that Alex Albon might get an opportunity at Williams, although that could be contentious too, because obviously being a Red Bull development driver, Toto Wolff may not want Albon driving a Mercedes engine and sort of getting inside understanding of what that engine is about, to be able to maybe take back some trade secrets. But there's going to be definitely some more news coming in the next couple of weeks here as we finish up the roster. Most of the teams' driving rosters are set, but we do have no drivers currently signed at Williams. We're missing a seat at Alfa Romeo, and that will be what we'll know soon who we'll get for next season.
Well, I'm hearing some rumblings out of E-Formula that there might be a driver here, Nick De Vries, that might take one of those seats. So it'll be interesting to see if that happens and if that's an easy transition or not. Obviously, Absolutely. It's just driving cars, right? But it'll be fun to see. Those what do you think, Jordan? Those should be locked up in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think that the big pieces are in place. It's like what you sometimes get in like NHL free agency or basketball free agency, where like the biggest pieces have to kind of fall into place to set the terms for what else is there. And obviously in this situation, you've only got 10 teams, 20 seats, and a lot of established guys. When those established guys are still out there, no team's going to go and try to sign a guy. Although we have seen that happen. Remember, Sergio Perez almost didn't get a seat last year because he was late to the party. However, I think this year
worked out in his favor, though.
It did, and I think this year it's a little bit more as per usual, where once Bottas and Russell had their seats, the other teams now can figure out who their number twos are going to be. For
sure. So Monza this weekend.
Monza's a great racetrack.
It's a storied racetrack. Tell us more.
Really fun every year. It's like Spa or Monaco. You hear Monza and you're going for something fun. It's a classic track. The home race for the Ferrari team, much like in the Netherlands. It should be a lot of red out there in the crowds. If they have, I'm not sure what the capacity is going to be for this race, but 53 laps. The lap record at Monza is a minute 20, so it is still a pretty fast lap. There's a couple good straightaway sections. Sector 1 has one tight turn and then another straightaway. And then between 7 and 8, there's another straightaway with DRS, and there's another DRS right near the end. So lots of fun. It's going to be a big race for Mercedes to bounce back and try to get Lewis back on top. He's only behind now, I think, by like 4.5 points or something like that, because we've had some weird points out there. So, we are in the big stretch part of the season where we're going to know pretty quickly if we're going to get a fight till the end, or it's going to be over quickly and Max is going to run away with it. And it's all going to start this week. This is our second triple header of the season too. So, nice to come back off the break with back-to-backs.
Yep, and I'm sure the racers are just as excited. Race goes this Sunday, September 12th, 7 a.m. Mountain Standard Time at the Autodromo Nazionale Monza. I'm going to stop saying these names. It's in Italy, the Italian Grand Prix. Thanks again, everybody, for listening to the Pit Stop Podcast. See you next week. The Pit Stop Podcast is presented by HatTrick Sports and is a member of the Ordinary Podcasting Network. The show is produced by Jordan and Braydon Dowler-Coltman each week, but mainly Jordan. And you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks for listening.